Hello everyone, this is ponderonweather. In this update, we're going to be talking about a massive storm coming with a major snowstorm and some extreme winds, including severe weather and tornadoes over the next 7 days. So if you're new to the channel, click the subscribe button and the notification bell to get all my daily updates to keep you ahead of the storm. So let's get right to it. This is October the 7th. First of all, greatly appreciate it. We did reach 80,000 followers last night. I appreciate each and every one of you for following my daily updates. And we got a lot to talk about this morning over the next 7 days because it's going to be a busy time in the weather department. Here's the vorticity index on the North American view. We've got this mid-level swirl out here in the midsection of the country. That's drawing in some Gulf moisture that brought all the flooding rains down here in Alabama yesterday. That's actually going to continue today as we have multiple vorticities that's coming off the West Coast, and these will get colder and colder over time, and eventually by Monday bring the powerful storm system that's going to be impacting much of the west and central part of the U.S. as we go into next week. So let's take a look at today. We do have highlighted another moderate risk for very excessive heavy rainfall with that same system that's going to be coming across, just lifting a little bit further off to the north. So all these areas in the marginal risk are still under that flash flood watch and even warnings at this time in parts of those areas. But now northern Georgia, getting into parts of South Carolina and North Carolina, that pocket there with that moderate risk, you can get excessive rainfall of 2 to 3 inches per hour at times, with that convective banding setting up after daytime heating takes a hold of the atmosphere. Because what happened yesterday and what we talked about, you can actually see as the sun came out, as the convecting banding really took shape, places like in near Birmingham into Tennessee, south of Birmingham, almost picked up 13 inches of rain with flash flood emergencies at times. So it was very bad out there, and that some of the indications could kind of the same thing happen today with that convective banding kind of lining up. Those are in isolated spots, but still the setup is there to pull in that Gulf moisture along this area, and that's why the Weather Prediction Center has highlighted that moderate risk for a flash flood concern as we get deeper into this afternoon and especially into the evening hours. So definitely be on the lookout if you're into that slight or even moderate risk for that excessive rainfall. So let's take a look at all the U.S. and where some of the rain is going to be falling. Yeah, over here in the southeast, that's where it's going to be impacting the most. But you could see some more heavier rains into Illinois, Indiana, as well as Ohio, and then southern parts of Wisconsin, and then kind of leftover showers here in Idaho, northern parts of Nevada, into Utah, as well as Montana here as we go throughout the day. So as we take a look at the Pacific side, I'm bringing this up because this is going to be a player for parts of the U.S. as we get down the line. We have a storm system, a developing invest right now that's going to be crossing over and getting into the Pacific side. It's got a 70% chance of developing, but this could form into Tropical Storm Pamela as we go through the day and get deeper into the week. And still has a lot of warm waters along the coast, even though it's very cold out here, but it's expected to reverse along the coastal regions as well. And then we also have a 20% chance out here of a storm possibly by the Bahamas that's going to be trying to get its act together. It's a lot of shear that's going to be having to contend with, but there's a lot of moisture, deep tropical moisture to work with as well. So especially along the Carolina coast, that could bring an enhanced rainfall for those areas. So let's take a look at Friday. So as we get into the day on Friday, there's that cold front, or more or less a Pacific front, that's going to be moving further along. So finally Alabama dries out, but now places into Georgia, along into the Carolinas, getting into the Ohio Valley. Ahead of that boundary, that's where you're going to be seeing those scattered storms. And out here with that cold air pushing in from the west, we could be looking at snow flying in the higher elevations of Idaho into Montana, into Utah, and even the portions of Colorado as we get into the day on Friday, with some much needed rain getting into parts of California as well. So as we transfer into Saturday, that same cold front just continues to push a little bit further off into the east. Now it's going to be drying out for much of the southeast, and it's going to be along that east coast where you're going to be picking up those scattered showers and heavier thunderstorms. But as we get through the day, I mean, notice this cold front here, it gets a little bit stronger. So it's got more cold air to work with. So that means less rain and more snow in the higher elevations in the same areas of Wyoming, getting into Colorado as we get into the day on Saturday. Now, this is not the main player. The main player is going to be Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday with a very heavy snow event, which we'll go over here in a little bit. So as we take a look at Sunday, that's when things start getting active on the severe weather front as well. So we have this, notice these little spokes of energy coming out. We've got an upper level low that's coming out into the Four Corners regions. And notice the jet down below. I mean, it's out ahead of it. We're going to be dealing with almost near record high temperatures in Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas for much of the midsection of the country, where it's high and dry over the next several days. We're talking mid 90s. So very unusual for this time of year. So it's got a lot of heat in the upper levels of the atmosphere to work with. And once that cold air aloft taps into that atmosphere, that's when we can set the stage for some severe weather, and that'll be coming up possibly on Sunday night. As we look for the west, as we have spokes and spokes of energy, this is a little bit cooler air, but this is the main player that's in Alaska currently on Friday, or on a Sunday time frame, that's really going to be digging down for Monday, going into Tuesday, and for Wednesday, setting the stage for our major snowstorm event. And down to the south, we're out to be looking at for severe weather as well. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center is already highlighted, and they actually upgraded this from yesterday. Of course, this is 4 days out. This is only Thursday, so we're talking Friday, Saturday, going into Sunday. They already included an enhanced risk, a level 3 enhanced risk for severe weather into Sherman, into Denison, parts of Oklahoma here into Bonham, as this pocket with this low-level jet really taps into those higher temperatures aloft. We've got the colder air penetrating at the surface, and this looks to be a kind of a nighttime event, possibly setting stage for some big supercell thunderstorms. As we get into October, we always have to look for our second season, and this looks to be kicking off in a big way with a very enhanced risk, and this could even be upgraded as we get deeper and closer to the event. Because even right now, yeah, we're looking at a slight risk that penetrates all the way down into the Dallas-Fort Worth area, into Dallas and Fort Worth, going to Oklahoma City, into Tulsa, as well as Arlington. So these areas will be under the gun, more or less, into Oklahoma, as well as the North Texas area for severe weather as we get into Sunday night, going into the overnight hours on Monday. So as we look, that's at the lightning, you know, during that time frame, you can kind of see where the storms could be right along into parts of Oklahoma, as well as North Texas. So some of these definitely could be packing a punch as they move into the overnight hours on Sunday night into Monday. But as we go into that Monday time frame, that's when things get really interesting, as we got a deep trough digging in. It's almost like what they call a bowling ball trough. I mean, it's got a lot of cold air going to be dragging down here from Alaska. It's got a lot of heavy snow over the past couple days in Alaska, and a lot of cold air to work with too. All that's going to be funneling down off the west coast, and that's going to bring the coldest temperatures of the season. And out ahead of it, we have that severe weather to work with. But as this really starts to deepen, all that rain that's happening now, it's going to be transferred to all snow, and it's going to be heavy snow as these isobars really start to tighten up, and we could be even looking at blizzard-like conditions coming up on the day on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, as this really starts to get cranking, as we have that little storm system off the Bahamas tries to get its act together, but pumping in some of that moisture off the Carolina coast. So we have to watch this for maybe small, tropical development as we get deeper into next week. So as we look at that vorticity index going into Monday, you see these little spokes of energy. You see this one out here in the southeast, that's going to be dying off. That's going to be pushing off the coast. Yet we have another one building that comes through Sunday night. That lifts off to the north. And then we have another one that's digging down here off the west coast. That's going to be our main player as we get into the day on a Monday, because to the north side of that, we've got some cold temperatures to work with as we wake up on Monday morning. We're talking below freezing, if not below zero at times, and into the higher elevations of Western Canada. But all these reds here, those are all temperatures that are freezing or below, as the coldest air of the season will continue to funnel down off the west regions. But you can see where it's trapped. It doesn't get too far south, as much of Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas is still in that warm sector. But yeah, back behind it, we've got that heavy snow that's going to be breaking out into parts of Oregon here, as well as Nevada here into Utah, into Idaho, as well as Montana and Wyoming, as this upper level low gets really cranking and really starts to deepen, and these isobars start to tighten up, and the heavier snow starts to kick in with that convective banding. Instead of heavier rain, now that convective banding is heavier snow going to be flying in those regions. Not that out of the question that these areas are getting snow this time of year, because this is typically when you first see your first snowfall. But unfortunately, the first one is going to be packing a punch in a big way, with multi-inches, if not multi-feet, in parts of the higher elevations in the mountain regions. And we'll go over some of these impressive totals at the end. But as we get into the day on Tuesday, man, that low just continues to drag down that colder air. Now we see a lot more reds showing up on the map here into much of the west coast regions, as all those below freezing temperatures really start to take shape as we get into the day on Tuesday. And man, look at the upper level low now, that bowling ball shape. And that's a nasty looking event right here, with a lot of extreme winds to work with. It's going to be very difficult to drive in these conditions. Very extreme winds, heavy snow, and that severe weather out ahead of it. Look at the jet pumping as we get to the day on a Tuesday. And back behind it, yeah, we've got all that heavier snow. We got the darker blue starting to show up in areas, and as this continues to push a little bit further off into the south, it's going to bring those heavier snows now entering Colorado. As what's down here, that is what now will be Pamela that I showed you at the beginning of the video. That's going to be taking advantage of those warm waters, and if not a tropical storm by then, it could be a minimal hurricane as we look for this feature. And this could be a player as we get deeper into next week. So as we get into that Tuesday time frame, yeah, as that second trough works in, we got that Sunday event going to be over North Texas and Oklahoma, but we also have a Tuesday event with that secondary trough digging in. And even right now, even into Tuesday, the Storm Prediction Center has already highlighted a slight risk for severe weather into Fort Worth, into Oklahoma City, into Arlington, and going into Plano and Irving. So another round of strong to severe thunderstorms is going to be setting the table for Tuesday, and then possibly even actually going into Wednesday. So we got 3 setups in this region for severe weather as we go into next week. And back behind it, we got all that colder air continue to funnel in with that snow. Now it's going to have a snowpack on the ground for some more widespread freezing temperatures. But look, I mean, this is Wednesday the 13th. You can see that cold air really doesn't move that much at all, as you're waking up at 75 degrees. Even on Wednesday, the October the 13th, into the Dallas-Worth area, as much of that colder air will be locked and loaded from much of the west coast. Back behind it, there's that snow trying to wring itself out, but once it kind of tightens up, it really starts to zone in on places like Wyoming now, as that heavier snow will kick in. But then there's Pamela. Pamela's coming up, and what happens with Pamela down the line, I think, this jet is going to be pretty powerful, screaming from the west. That will actually help pick up Pamela and drag it towards Mexico. And also, what it would help influence a little bit some of this cold air to finally push off a little bit further off into the east. And so by the time we get into that Wednesday, going into Thursday time frame, and this pushes into the mountain regions, it falls apart over the mountains, but also could spread some of that moisture into Texas. And it's not that out of the question. These events could happen in October. This is typically what you see with the jet stream really getting active from west to east as we go deeper into October. So this is not out of the question that this can happen, as it'll spread some of that welcome rain actually into Texas, and will actually finally maybe push this cool front, if not, to be modified by then, finally get it into Oklahoma, into Texas, but that might not be actually into Friday. So it's got a long ways to go, as Pamela's not even a storm yet. So as we get into to show you the wind, man, I told you, man, if you're a truck driver, if you got any travel plans next week, definitely be on the lookout on the roads, because there's going to be a lot of extreme winds in a good chunk of the country, and the Four Corners regions with that these troughs digging in with that severe weather, into Wyoming, going into the Dakotas, a good chunk. I mean, all these reds and darker oranges here, that's easily 50, 60, even 70, upwards to 80-mile-per-hour winds at times. It's not out of the question. So it's going to be a bumpy ride for much of the country going into next week. And beyond that, you can see where the cold air flies. I mean, it's all off the West Coast. I mean, that's 20 to 30 degrees below average temperatures. Once we get into that Tuesday time frame and beyond, all the colder air, all the warmer air is locked in the central and eastern 2/3, as much of the dividing line where that warm sector will come into play as we get into mid next week. All those above average rains come back in the midsection of the country. And look at the rain prospects for the next week as we get these multiple vorticities come across. Here's the storm system in the Bahamas, so we have to watch if some sort of tropical development might form in this neck of the woods. But either way, we're looking at some heavier rains along the coast from that tropical type feature. We've got those bandings coming across with that Sunday and Tuesday, Wednesday event. And there's Pamela down here. This stops on Thursday, but I think a lot of this pulls in by Friday. But still, welcome rains are coming back for the Dallas-Fort Worth area, into parts of central Texas, into Oklahoma, into Kansas, as up here along to the northern regions as well. As these bands rain out snow, it's still going to be bringing heavier rains, even though you're in the warm sector in the Dakotas, for much of North Dakota and South Dakota, as this will fishtail and kind of shear apart into Iowa, into Wisconsin, as well as Illinois, as we go throughout the week with those heavier rains. And then the western regions will still have some rains to contend with over the next 7 days. So hey, I appreciate you guys watching. And there's the snow. I mean, talk a look about the snow. I mean, this is packing a punch. I mean, look at the graph down here of double-digit snowfalls, even upwards of 2 to 3 feet in some of these areas will be, with that convective banding really taking shape. So this area is really going to be hit hard, if not blizzard conditions, as we go through the day, Monday, Tuesday, and that Wednesday time frame. So I appreciate you guys watching. I know there's a lot to cover today. October can be very active. Make sure you hit the like button to let YouTube know you value my content. And please subscribe to my channel and catch me the latest update where I protect you before and after the storm.